Tonight on CFTK-TV, Pierre Poilievre makes announcements in Terrace. Campaigns from different parties make their way to British Columbia, and how Canadians have been analyzing products from the United States.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. We begin tonight's cast in federal news that can be tied locally, where the focus was on industry in Terrace today as Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre brought his campaign to the north. Here's Jaylene Matthews of CFTK-TV with more.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Terrace today to reveal the plan for a one-and-done rule, which would fast-track resource projects that get stuck in the federal approval process.
One desk called the Rapid Resource Project Office will handle all regulatory approvals across all levels of government so businesses don't have to waste time navigating through dozens of different agencies at 3 different levels of government. The double process right now where you have to do the exact same environmental review 3 different times for 3 different levels of government. We'll merge them together, one and done.
But former MLA Nathan Cullen has some critique for the proposed one-and-done system.
What he's missing is, through relationship and understanding, the province of BC has already been able to make agreements with First Nations to have what's called a joint environmental assessment process. So with the TELTAN over particular mines, we'll say, let's do the environmental assessment together. But you can't force that. You can't force that politically, and you can't force that legally. He can introduce whatever bill he wants, that it's going to be one permit and you're all going to say yes. And that will get shot down immediately by a thing called the Constitution of Canada. So unless he's planning to also change the Constitution, this is garbage. It's not a real idea. And it's unfortunate because some people will say, oh, maybe that makes sense. It's illegal. It would not work.
Poilievre's plan includes a commitment to approve Phase 2 of the LNG Canada project. The second phase would include 2 new processing lines that would double the plant's capacity to 28 million tons of LNG per year.
I should point out, we are selling natural gas for $4 per British thermal unit to the Americans. It goes for $15 in Europe. So we're selling something for $4 that we could be getting $15 for, but for the fact that we don't have any export terminals that can move the gas overseas. All of them blocked by the Liberals. Only one is nearing completion, and that is LNG Canada here in this region, over in Kitimat.
A final investment decision on Phase 2 is expected to happen this year before the plant's initial production starts. For CFTK TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
An MP for Skeena-Balchley, Taylor Backrack, has joined chorus, calling out Poilievre for refusing to remove a candidate of the Conservative Party. A letter was released on Friday, signed by 37 elected and formerly elected officials, urging the Conservative Party to withdraw their endorsement of Aaron Gunn, who is a candidate for the North Island Powell River riding. The letter states that Gunn made statements in the past denying the impacts of residential schools, generational trauma, and genocide experienced by First Nations peoples in Canada. Gunn took to social media to deny that those were his beliefs, saying, quote, "I have always been firm in recognizing the truly horrific events that transpired in residential schools, and any attempt to suggest otherwise is simply false." And today, MP Backrack released a statement calling on Poilievre to reject all prospective Conservative candidates who deny the lived experiences of residential school survivors. Backrack said to allow someone to run who denies those harms sends a troubling message to First Nations people in the region. And Poilievre has also called the allegations against Gunn, quote, misinformation. And we've named off one candidate that will be running for Skeena-Balchley this upcoming election, but there still happens to be a few more candidates that will be running in the district. We are now less than a month away of knowing who the next Prime Minister of Canada will be, with Mark Carney calling a federal snap election only a few weeks ago. And for the Skeena-Balchley region, there are 4 candidates looking to make their mark here in the Northwest. Starting with the NDP led by Taylor Backrack, the current member of parliament is focused on combating against the Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre.
The way to stop that, because Pierre Poilievre sounds an awful lot like Donald Trump these days, the way to stop that is to vote NDP in this riding.
For Skeena Bulkley in the Conservative Party, it is led by Ellis Ross, who will be looking to repeal Bill C-69, which is the assessment for environmental and economic impacts, including the rights of Indigenous people before a major resource or infrastructure project can officially get started up. The Liberals, who are led by Inderpal Dillon, was nominated last week.
So I will bring that funds in our region so that we can invest in ports, in railways, highway, and to make this region a trade hub.
And the Christian Heritage Party will be led by Rod Taylor, who will look to end income tax and implement mandatory balanced budgets.
Neither the Liberals nor the Conservatives, and certainly not the NDP, have ever figured out how to balance a budget. It's been many years since we've had balanced budgets. We're now $1.2 trillion in the hole.
It's an interesting time for an election where Canadians will have to think away from unity to some extent, but all those running still find themselves on the same side of the border.
That means very targeted retaliatory tariffs to put pressure on the Americans. And at the same time, we need to do everything that we can to protect Canadian workers and protect Canadian families.
Previously, we put all our eggs in one basket. Our 77% of trade was with the US. So now this situation arises only to that decision. So now this is the time we have to diversify.
We're not going to force Donald Trump and the United States into a corner and make them do our will. If we were just clean up our border and deal with those issues, maybe this tariff situation would go away. We think that we should just clean up our act. And if we weren't so deeply in debt, these tariffs wouldn't be so terrifying to our Canadian industries and businesses. But this debt is killing us, and that's something that we need to deal with.
Coming up next, polls show how Canadians have decided to purchase their groceries based off of their origin. Welcome back to CFTK-TV. Well, a new report has come out on what Canadians prefer when they are making their purchases at the grocery store. And not because of the price alone, but if shoppers may want to spend a little bit more as long as the product is Canadian. Here's Camille Karamali, who has more on this story.
Here at this Toronto grocery store, where Canada is literally in the name, items produced in the country are clearly marked, maple leaf after maple leaf. And that makes it easier for shoppers like Davida,
like these are from Quebec,
to buy local. Would you pay more for goods if they were Canadian?
I would say maybe 10 to 15% more.
It's Canadians' response to the tariffs tacked on by the U.S.
The produce, we do pay attention to the Canada logo and try to pick the Canadian item over the U.S. stuff.
Now, a recent survey done in late March by Dalhousie University shows most people are willing to pay 5 to 10% more for Canadian-grown foods, with 30% saying they would always do it, and more than 30% willing to support local only for specific products. That's over 60% willing to shell out more for Canadian goods.
And the 61% to me was really, really high, much higher than expected.
And if some U.S. food imports became restricted because of the trade war, 40% said they would buy imports from other countries, while nearly the same number said they would buy Canadian alternatives even if it costs more. When it comes to trusting Canadian grocers to keep prices stable on locally sourced foods, just over half trust them, while 20% either completely or somewhat distrust them.
That result is concerning. I think if I were a grocer, I'd be concerned about that.
Now, it's tough to tell how long this buy local movement will last. Some experts say it'll just keep gaining momentum as long as trade tensions persist. Others say with the costs of goods only expected to go up, it's only a matter of time until people just go back to buying whatever is cheapest. Kamil Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
And now we move on to your local weather forecast for tonight and for the week ahead. Tonight on the north coast, there should be some periods of rain with winds coming from the southeast at 20 kilometers per hour, along with a low of +5. This week should be rainy and cloudy overall, with a slight increase in temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday, and then a little bit of a drop heading into the weekend. The rainiest period should be the entirety of Wednesday as well as Thursday during the afternoon. The high will be 10 degrees, and the low should be Friday evening at 3 degrees. Terrace and Kitimat should see similar conditions to today's forecast tonight, with cloudy conditions and a 70% chance of showers throughout the night. Winds should be coming from the south at 30 kilometers per hour, increasing to 50 at times up until midnight, where it should die down. The low should be +3. And for this week, expect showers and rain throughout, with a potential chance of sun happening on Saturday, but that is still subject to change. The high should be 8 on Wednesday and Saturday, while the low should be 2 degrees in the evening on Wednesday and Friday night. Tonight in the BV, expect a cloudy night with a 30% chance of showers, along with a risk of thunderstorms that should clear up near midnight. Winds should be coming from the southwest at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times, with a low of -4 and a wind chill of -6 overnight. And for this week, expect mostly sunny conditions, along with some consistency at 11 degrees for the next 2 days, then 3 days of 10 degrees, and the low should be -2 tomorrow night. And now we take a look at your roadside report from around the Northwest. For additional updates, check out drybc.ca. Highway 16, there is bridge maintenance on Haida Gwaii, utility work at Rainbow Lake and west of Terrace, road sweeping east of Burns Lake and slippery sections. Highway 37 has water pooling from Kitimat to Terrace, fog patches from Kitwanga to Cranberry Junction, and frost heaves from Cranberry Junction to the Yukon border. Highway 37A has falling rocks throughout. Highway 118 has fog patches. The Nishka Highway has water pooling, and Telegraph Creek Road has muddy sections. And these are what the cameras were looking like from around the Northwest. Still to come, how small businesses are faring with a lack of trade between different provinces. Hello again. Well, before Pierre Poilievre made his way to Terrace today, the Conservative leader was south of the province this past weekend to win over British Columbia, which has had a strong NDP riding for the last decade or so. Jeremy Charon from CTV News happened to be on scene.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre kicking off his third week on the campaign trail in battleground British Columbia.
British Columbia has been the ground zero for this massive, deadly Liberal failure.
The Conservative leader is pushing to gain ground on the West Coast, where he's now stopped twice, today in a riding held by longtime NDP MP Peter Julian.
Conservatives come here every election. Stephen Harper used to come here twice in the election. We had Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, now Pierre Poilievre.
NDP! But why are the Conservatives targeting ridings in a province that has long seen Orange support?
Right now, at least, it's a two-horse race between the Conservatives and the Liberals. It's going to be very difficult right now in BC for the New Democrats.
According to the latest Nanos research data, BC is one of 2 regions in the country where the Conservatives are leading, with 40% ballot support to the Liberals' 37.5%. The NDP have dropped to 13%.
BC, can shape the next government, whether it's a minority or a majority government, and that's why it's absolutely critical.
But the New Democrats are looking to hold on to key seats in this province, like here in New Westminster, as the party faces major downward pressure in the polls.
We're seeing the momentum on the ground, but the reality is, in BC, people understand that you vote NDP to stop the Conservative agenda.
The Liberals are trying to keep their own momentum going. Mark Carney traveling west of Winnipeg to British Columbia for the first time this campaign, starting in Victoria tonight. He spent much of last week dealing with the U.S. trade war as Prime Minister, but campaign sources tell CTV News that hasn't put him behind on the campaign trail. So the story here in BC, can the NDP hold on to those key ridings? And if not, who can take advantage? With 3 weeks left in this campaign, expect this province to be a popular stop. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, New Westminster, British Columbia.
And you would think that trading within the country would be on top priority right now, but small businesses around the country are struggling to figure out trade between the different provinces. Here is Paul Hollingsworth of CTV News, who has this report over in Halifax.
Several years ago, this restaurant was closed during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Owner Lil McPherson says it almost wrecked her business.
Well, it was a huge bite.
McPherson is facing a new crisis, food shortages. She says Canada's next government will need to act fast to find a solution.
20% of the eggs are coming from the United States to be delivered here to hatcheries.
The avian flu outbreak in the U.S. has caused inventory issues north of the border.
We don't have enough eggs.
As trade tensions mount with the U.S., Canadians are being encouraged to buy local, but small business owners have a message for the party leaders in this campaign. In some cases, local is not available.
It should not be harder to sell to, Saskatchewan than it is to sell to Maine.
Halifax brewery owner Brian Titus hopes the next Prime Minister addresses the red tape causing trade barriers within Canada. Titus receives raw materials from Western Canada and he ships his products as far as Alberta.
There's ways to reduce energy costs, transportation costs, that kind of thing. That would be great.
Titus is also worried about tariff and counter-tariff protection on aluminum. He says this should be a top priority for leaders during the campaign to ease the burden on Canadian businesses and consumers.
It should make its way to the consumer because that is the only, and I'm talking about the U.S. consumer, because that is the only way they're going to actually care, is if it affects their bottom line.
A bottom line, this business advocate says, helps churn economic growth.
The small businesses are what drives the local economies, what supports our towns and small cities.
We are the biggest employer. We are the tax collectors.
McPherson says, given the ongoing trade war with the U.S., the importance of small businesses to the overall Canadian economy has never been greater. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And now we take a look at the stock market, where we have a drop in all but one category today. The Canadian dollar is down 5/100th of a cent. The price of gold is down $61.80. Oil is down $1.29. Natural gas is down 18 cents, and aluminum is down $81. In Toronto, the TSX is down 334 points. The Venture Index is down 8.5. In New York, the Dow Jones is down 349, and NASDAQ is up 15. Still ahead, with summer a few months away, tourism in Western Canada still remains promising for the industry. Welcome back to our final segment here on CFTK-TV. Well, heading into week 3 of the campaign, the impact of Trump's tariffs are somewhat taking a back seat to the issues already playing out here in Canada. Some of those examples include housing and healthcare that took center stage. It comes as new polling suggests that the race could be tightening up, with Trump taking up less of the limelight. Colton Prale from CTV News has this story.
5,626. According to the federal government, that's the number of Canadians killed by apparent opioid overdoses in the first 9 months of last year. In British Columbia, the overdose rate is the highest in the country, and it's where Pierre Poilievre is pitching a complete overhaul of how Canada handles illicit substances.
This is outrageous. We cannot go on like this.
The Conservatives say they'll ban new supervised consumption sites, add new restrictions on existing sites, and end safe supply programs, instead using that money to create a $1 billion 4-year fund focused on recovery for 50,000 people.
Instead of having drug consumption sites, for example, we want to have a welcoming place for people who are addicted to come, give them counseling, and help them get connected with a recovery center whose goal is to make them drug-free.
Well, that's exactly what we want to do, find ways to protect renters.
On the East Coast, the NDP promising national rent control.
And the way we're going to do this is, if any province or municipality wants federal investments, federal funds to build homes, they have to put in place laws that protect renters.
Jagmeet Singh saying he would also ban fixed-term leases and coordinated pricing tools. The bloc focused on supporting small businesses by lowering shipping costs through Canada Post and legislating lower fees for accepting credit card payments. And Mark Carney is in BC for the first time in the campaign, meeting voters in Victoria.
As the parties kick off week 3 of the campaign, tomorrow is the deadline to register candidates. The Liberals, NDP, and the Bloc all have a full slate, while the Green Party is just 3 people shy. The Conservatives were the only party who wouldn't say how many candidates they've named by deadline, although their website shows that it's not a complete list.
And with summer only a few months away, tourism companies are seeing more and more Canadians choosing to flock to their sites instead of the ones down south. Here is Kathy Lee, who has our final story of the evening.
Escaping the bustle of the city to the tranquility of nature is their ideal getaway.
We like to hike and climb and then just relax by the fire.
Their summer travel plans involve a lot of relaxing, and they'll do it north of the border.
A dollar doesn't go very far down there.
The weak dollar and the trade war, just some reasons why many travelers are choosing Canada instead of the United States as their destination.
We're hearing from operators across the country, really, that domestic bookings are up for this summer.
Including this RV resort in BC. The company's seeing a 48% increase in reservations this month compared to the same time last year.
It's the dollar first, and then it's the political climate. People aren't, feeling comfortable being in the States right now until things get figured out.
And this RV campsite in Alberta expecting to see a bump in bookings too.
We always have lots of space. And, even with our dollar being so weak, hey, we'll welcome any Americans that want to come too.
The shifting travel trend could help RV retail stores, as long as their U.S.-made products remain exempt from tariffs thanks to the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement.
Pricings remain stable, and we continue to steadily order inventory to service this burst in demand.
Some of that demand also coming from Canadians who will still travel down south.
People still need to make a living down there. People who run the RV sites, they're still very accommodating to us, and they want us to come down there regardless of what's going on with the government.
The Tourism Industry Association of Canada says the country saw $130 billion in visitor spending last year, boosting the GDP by $50 billion. This year is expected to be strong again, with more Canadians staying local. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Mosley, Alberta.
And that'll be all for the cast tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 5, 6, 6:30, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good evening.